How you doing, Shane?
Yeah, no, no, all good, mate. Greetings, platform fraternity.
It's a huge one. It's a huge one, Shane. What do you make of this criticism of what you're doing here with fisheries?
Yeah. So obviously, the recreational sector are broad. I've met with representatives from the South Island, and they seem to have a more pragmatic approach to these reforms than the person that you had on your show. But look, it's a democracy. They're entitled to get worked up. Anyone who doubts that I'm not addressing all of the aspects of the fisheries sector, then look at the news this morning where I have made a decision, aided by my officials' analysis, to close down the commercial crayfishing industry in Hauraki Gulf.
Mm.
So if someone was madly associated purely with the industry, then obviously a minister like me wouldn't have made that decision. That is a major decision that was announced this morning, and it is
Mm.
going to have an impact on a very lucrative part of the commercial seafood sector. So I just hope there's a bit more balance coming from certain people in the recreational sector in the short term.
The crayfish Hauraki Gulf decision, which is a really significant decision, is that because effectively we've overfished it, or we've overcaught it, and we've nailed it basically, and it needs to grow again. It needs to sort of replenish.
Yeah, I mean, it's a specific species where it's under stress. I'm addressing a historically uh, well, devilish situation. It's not the only time I'm going to be making decisions like that. However, the reform decisions, look, I'm addressing issues that ought to have been picked up by Phil Heatley and other fisheries ministers when you were still in Parliament. They're issues that have bedeviled the industry for 25, 30 years. So
Mm.
I think it's just mischief making to suggest that somehow these problems are suddenly emerging on the radar. I'm going to have a big meeting with the recreational guys in Whangamata and other such areas. My officials have had a meeting, I think, with reps from Legacy, and nothing, absolutely nothing that Cabinet is doing through me is going to undermine or destroy the birthright of Kiwis to go and catch a feed.
Mm. What about the this proposal to get rid of the bycatch and everything at sea? They're quite concerned about that because they're trying to obviously be sustainable and use this stuff. So families come in and they take away the frames and the heads and everything. Shane, they're concerned that that's going to undermine this campaign around using the whole fish.
Well, if a commercial guy brings more fish than they're entitled to at the moment back to shore, it all goes to the tip. So it
Yeah.
turns into methane gas. Um, I think the area that we need to watch, and they've pointed it out, is that harvesters don't grade at sea. But then the vast majority of the boats where the risk is, they've all got cameras on them now. And that's the trade-off. As you know, the New Zealand First Party, we never campaigned for cameras, but as a
Mm.
part of coalition pragmatism, I'm now responsible for being the steward of the cameras, and the cameras represent an opportunity, and I want it used in a pragmatic way so it doesn't turn into state surveillance of industry, and there should be some quid pro quo, and that's why, rather than bring all this fish back to sea, from sea back to land, if indeed it is happening, then it can just go back into the ecosystem.
So you want to give them the opportunity to turn the cameras off at times. Is that correct?
No. They'll not be able to turn the cameras off at times. The cameras are creating footage. The footage can be used by this by MPI, by the state for prosecutorial purposes. We want to make sure that people are using the cameras, however, not for petty purposes. I only want the cameras footage to be used if there's an egregious case and someone has really gamed the system. But just as a trucking industry, they're often under surveillance in terms of tracking where they've been and whatnot. And what you should be looking for are egregious cases where there's a pattern of behaviour that causes you to believe that there's some major criminality happening. But that's very rarely the case. However, we've got the cameras. They do represent an opportunity to increase surveillance. And part of the quid pro quo is, rather than bring all this fish back that apparently the recreational sector are adamant that the industry is doing on a regular basis. I mean, I've got no evidence of it. Occasionally you have a gear failure, like I think there was a whole lot of fish floating around Quota Island 2 or 3 months ago, and that was because a boat that didn't sink. I think it did sink, actually. It was a gear failure situation.
Are you looking at setting catch limits for up to 5 years at a time with only one chance of public consultation? That's what they claim.
No, that's out there for them to respond to. There are some management changes and different options. Look, there'll be ample opportunity for the recreational guys to get involved. The thing they need to bear in mind is that the snapper is so thick on the west coast, you can figuratively walk on it. And the snapper population on the east coast. Yeah, well, there you go. The snapper population on the east coast is profound. The scientists show us this and their work that shortage of snapper is not the problem. On the west coast, it's actually tilted the ecosystem in the wrong way. We've got so much snapper. But hey, it's a highly vexed area. It's contested space. The ability for the industry to roll some quota forward from 1 year to the other, that already exists at the margin. There's also an allowance for 10 to 15% where fish may suffer a whole host of mortality outcomes for different factors. That's already in the system. And really, my drive is to ensure that the quota system, which came in the Longi government, remains the basis of managing commercial sea fisheries. I know that a lot of recreational guys want the quota management system dismantled. Well, go and talk to the Māori tribes before I do that.
And good luck with that. And the can you guarantee, though, that recreational fishers will have no less fishing access than they do now?
No, that's always going to come down to science. I'm not the guy who is stopping recreational fishing in the Hauraki Gulf. That was introduced by the Labour Party within spitting distance of the last election. It's been carried forward by our cabinet. I'm astounded that the recreational guys acquiesced and agreed to the imposition of all these reserves throughout the Hauraki Gulf. If I'd have been in politics in 2020 to 2023, New Zealand First would never, ever have agreed to them. But I've inherited them. It's with Tama Pōtaka. It's madness. So the recreational leadership should ask themselves, why did you ever agree to the imposition of all these reserves? And all I did was protect the legacy rights of a small number of ringnetters, i.e. people who catch mullet and parore and other pretty basic species of fish. And I've allowed them for 3 years, and there's another review, to continue to be in existence. But the recreational guys, they had all the time for the last 5 to 10 years, and they acquiesced in the creation of these reserves, and they'll never be lifted. New Zealand First is not interested in all these reserves. We're interested in better management outcomes, so the recreational guys, that's on them.
The RMA, Shane, well, I've got you here, the RMA, and whether the treaty principles are in there or not. Now, we know they're not. Are you concerned about not having a reference to iwi or to the principles of the treaty, or is this something that you have pushed for to make sure it's out of the legislation?